He lied to my face over and over. Every "I love you" was a lie. And when I found out about her, the woman he swore didn't exist, I made sure everyone at his work party knew the truth. This is how I exposed my cheating husband and changed everything. I still remember the exact moment when the world I thought I knew shattered into a million pieces. 7 years of marriage, years I thought were built on love, honesty, and trust, were suddenly clouded with betrayal. My husband, Michael, the man I trusted more than anyone, had been lying to me all along. Lied and lied again. At first, I tried to convince myself that I was imagining things. Maybe it was just work stress or a rough patch, or the pressures of life we all face. But deep down, I knew something was very wrong. The first signs were so subtle, almost easy to ignore. Michael started coming home later than usual. First, it was just once or twice a week. "I have meetings," he'd say. "Work is hectic right now." I believed him because, after all, he was always such a dedicated husband and father. But then the excuses piled up. He began to avoid my questions about his day. His phone, which used to be casually left on the kitchen counter, was suddenly always face down, locked, and with a passcode he never shared. And his smiles when he came home felt forced, distant, like a mask hiding something ugly beneath. One evening I made his favorite dinner: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and his favorite green beans. The kids and I waited eagerly for him at the dinner table, but he didn't come home until after 9 p.m. No call. No message. Just silence. When he finally arrived, he barely glanced at the food. "I'm sorry work ran late," he muttered, but I could tell the apology was rehearsed. His eyes looked away from mine, and I caught the faint scent of a perfume that wasn't mine. That's when my heart started to break piece by painful piece. For days I tried to push my doubts away. I told myself I was overreacting. But then the little things started to pile up. Missed calls, secret texts, a lipstick-stained coffee cup found in the trash. My mind was a battlefield between hope and fear. One afternoon, when Michael left his phone on the kitchen counter, I couldn't resist. The passcode was always his birthday, something he said was easy to remember. My hands trembled as I unlocked it. What I saw on that screen turned my blood cold. Texts from a woman named Sophia filled the messages. Her words were warm, full of love and secret plans. Michael called her my sunshine, my love, and my everything. There were pictures too. Selfies of the two of them laughing, holding hands, whispering in crowded restaurants. I stared at the screen, tears burning my eyes. How could the man I loved so deeply be living this double life? How could he betray me and our family like this? But tears alone wouldn't fix anything. I had to stay strong. I had to be smart. I began gathering proof. I saved every text, every photo, every email. I recorded a few phone calls where Michael accidentally confessed his love for Sophia when he thought I wasn't listening. And I hired a private investigator to follow him, to confirm where he was and who he was with. The evidence grew, piling up like a mountain of betrayal. But Michael continued to act like nothing was wrong. He smiled at the kids, helped with chores, and went about his day like a perfect husband. I hated the act more than the cheating itself. 2 weeks before the company's annual work party, I decided I had enough. The party was the perfect place to expose him. It was full of his colleagues, his boss, and important people from his professional and social circle. If I revealed the truth there, he couldn't hide or run. I managed to get an invitation as his +1. It wasn't easy. I played my cards carefully, convincing the organizer that I wanted to support Michael and meet his friends. Little did they know what was really coming. The night of the party, I dressed carefully. Not too flashy, but confident and elegant. I wanted to look like the woman Michael had lied to for years. A woman proud, composed, and ready to reclaim her life. When I arrived, Michael's face changed instantly. He hadn't expected me there. He tried to keep his cool, but I saw the panic flicker in his eyes. As the evening went on, I watched him move around the room, laughing and whispering with Sophia. They thought they were invisible, but I had everyone's attention. Finally, the moment came. I stood up and called out Michael's name. The room quieted, eyes turning to us. I cleared my throat and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. I have something important to share. I pulled out my phone and began showing the messages, the texts, the photos, the secret plans. I played the recordings of Michael's voice confessing his love for Sophia. The room fell into stunned silence. Sophia's face drained of color, and Michael's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. He tried to deny it, stammering weak excuses, but the evidence was undeniable. I saw the shock and disappointment in the eyes of his colleagues, friends, even his boss. That night I took back my power. I wasn't just a betrayed wife. I was a woman who refused to be silenced, who demanded respect and truth. But this was only the beginning. Days after the party, the fallout was immediate. Michael was humiliated at work. His reputation tarnished in front of everyone who mattered. He stopped coming home on time, stopped calling, stopped pretending. But I wasn't interested in revenge just for the sake of it. I wanted to rebuild my life. I focused on my kids, my career, and my own happiness. I surrounded myself with supportive friends and family who reminded me of my worth. And somewhere deep inside, a new fire was burning. A determination to never let anyone treat me like I was disposable again. Looking ahead, I knew there would be more battles ahead. Legal battles over our home and finances. Emotional battles with my own heart and trust. But after the party, after I exposed Michael and his lies to the world, I felt free. Free to start over. Free to choose myself. This was the end of the first chapter of my revenge story. The next chapters would be about rebuilding, healing, and making sure Michael never forgets the night I exposed him in front of everyone. The silence that followed my public revelation was heavier than I had imagined. Michael stood frozen. His face drained of color as every pair of eyes bore into him. I could see the panic settle deep in his eyes. A man who realized the game was over. The mask torn away in front of everyone who knew him professionally and personally. The whispers started almost immediately, subtle but certain, ripples of shock and disbelief spreading through the crowd. Colleagues I had only met briefly averted their gaze. Some exchanged glances that spoke volumes without a single word. I stood firm, my heart pounding in my chest, but my hands steady. This was the moment I had prepared for, the moment when all those lies finally caught up to him. Yet beneath my outward calm, a storm raged inside. Memories of every broken promise, every late-night excuse, every time I chose to believe him because I loved him. Now that love had been replaced by cold clarity. I was no longer the woman blind to his deception. I was a woman armed with the truth and unwilling to be silenced. As the party continued, the atmosphere had changed completely. The usual laughter and chatter were replaced by awkward silences and stifled whispers. I caught sight of Sophia slipping away, her confident smirk replaced by a worried frown. Michael tried to recover, attempting weak excuses, denying, pleading for privacy. But the damage was done. The proof was irrefutable. After that night, life didn't return to any kind of normalcy. Michael avoided me, his once warm glances replaced by cold indifference. He stopped coming home on time, stopped answering my calls. When I confronted him, his anger exploded, thinly veiling his guilt. He accused me of ruining his career, his reputation, his life. But I knew the truth. He had ruined it himself. The children were the hardest part. Their innocent questions and confused faces tore at my heart. They didn't understand why Daddy wasn't around much anymore, or why he seemed so angry when he did come home. I made sure they never saw the anger or sadness in me. I became their rock, their safe place. I promised them that no matter what happened, they were loved, and nothing could change that. Meanwhile, I started meeting with a lawyer. I needed to protect myself and my children. Michael's betrayal wasn't just emotional. It threatened our financial security, our home, our future. The house was under both our names, but I knew he would fight to keep it. I wasn't going to let him win. The legal meetings were exhausting. The paperwork, the negotiations, the tense phone calls with Michael's lawyer. It was a battlefield. But I stayed focused. Every document I gathered, every piece of evidence I had from his lies and affairs strengthened my case. I wasn't just fighting for property. I was fighting for justice and dignity. Friends and family rallied around me. Their support was my lifeline. Late-night phone calls, cups of tea shared on my couch, and honest conversations reminded me that I was not alone. Some of Michael's closest friends expressed their shock and sided with me quietly, disillusioned by the man they thought they knew. That support was priceless. It gave me the strength to keep moving forward even on the darkest days. Despite the chaos, I started reclaiming parts of myself I had neglected. I signed up for yoga classes, reconnected with old friends, and even started working on a side business I'd always dreamed about but never had time for. Michael's betrayal, as painful as it was, became the catalyst for my transformation. But the battle was far from over. Michael didn't go down without a fight. His pride was wounded, and he lashed out in subtle ways, calling me at odd hours, sending passive-aggressive texts, trying to turn the children against me. It was exhausting and heartbreaking, but I stayed strong, refusing to stoop to his level. One evening, a particularly heated argument erupted over the custody arrangements. Michael accused me of destroying his life and claimed I was trying to alienate him from the children. I stood my ground, my voice steady but firm, reminding him that the children deserved honesty, love, and stability, things he had neglected. The legal proceedings dragged on for months. Court hearings, mediation sessions, and endless paperwork became my new reality. I watched as Michael's facade cracked further in public, his reputation tarnished not just by the affair but by his erratic behavior. Meanwhile, I focused on presenting myself as composed, determined, and above all, a loving mother fighting for what was right. During one of the court sessions, I finally got the chance to speak. Facing Michael and his lawyer across the courtroom, I shared my truth. I spoke about the lies, the betrayal, and how his actions affected not just me but our children. I showed the evidence, the texts, the recordings, and the testimony from the private investigator. The judge listened carefully, her eyes filled with understanding. That day I felt a shift. It was the first real victory in a long war. The judge ruled in my favor on several key points: temporary custody of the children, restrictions on Michael's access, and an order for him to pay for part of the legal fees. It wasn't the end, but it was a step toward justice. Outside the courthouse, I allowed myself a small smile. For the first time in months, I felt hope. I was no longer the victim of lies and betrayal. I was becoming the woman who reclaimed her life piece by piece. Even as I rebuilt, I couldn't forget the pain. There were nights I cried alone, missing the husband I thought I had. But I reminded myself that I deserved honesty, respect, and love, things Michael had chosen to throw away. Slowly, the children started to adjust. Their smiles returned, their laughter filled the house again. I became more than just a mother. I became their protector, their guide, and their source of strength. Michael's presence in our lives diminished, and with it, the weight of betrayal lifted little by little. I was no longer living in the shadow of his lies. I was writing a new chapter, one of healing, courage, and resilience. And while the scars remained, they reminded me of the battle I fought and won. A battle not just against betrayal, but against losing myself. This was the path I chose, one where I took back control and refused to be broken. The courtroom was cold, sterile, and full of tension. I sat there, clutching my folder filled with papers and proof, but this time it wasn't just about exposing lies or confronting betrayal. This was about finalizing the future. My future, my children's future, and the life I was determined to rebuild without the man who had shattered my trust. Michael sat across from me, his face still weary from the months of back-and-forth battles, the public humiliation, and the slow unraveling of the life we once shared. His eyes flicked up briefly, filled with a mixture of regret and resentment, but I had learned not to look for apologies where none would come. The judge reviewed the evidence carefully, listening to each word, watching our reactions, weighing the facts against the promises broken and the damage caused. After hours of testimony, arguments, and legal wrangling, the verdict finally came. I was awarded full custody of our children, with Michael granted supervised visits. The house was legally transferred to my name, and Michael was ordered to pay a fair settlement, including child support and legal fees. Most importantly, the judge reprimanded Michael for his dishonesty and disregard for the family's well-being. As I stood up to leave the courtroom, relief washed over me, but so did a strange sense of finality. This chapter was closed, but a new one was beginning. I had fought hard and won, but the true victory was in reclaiming my peace and rebuilding my life on my terms. Outside, the sun was shining brighter than it had in months. The fresh air felt like freedom, not just from Michael's lies, but from the fear and uncertainty that had gripped me for so long. My children ran into my arms, their smiles wide and genuine. For them I had been strong. For myself I was finally beginning to feel whole again. The weeks that followed were challenging but hopeful. I moved us into a new home, a place that felt safe and welcoming, where my kids could grow without the shadows of betrayal. I focused on their happiness, their school, and their friendships. And I finally started to nurture myself. I enrolled in a course I had always wanted to take, reconnected with old friends, and found new passions. Slowly, the woman who had once felt broken and defeated was coming back to life, stronger, wiser, and unafraid. Michael's presence faded from my daily thoughts. I stopped waiting for calls that never came, stopped hoping for apologies that never arrived. Instead, I filled my days with love, laughter, and new memories. But this story isn't just about betrayal and revenge. It's about resilience. About choosing yourself when others choose to hurt you. About standing tall when the world tries to knock you down. To anyone listening to this story, if you've ever been betrayed or hurt, know that you are not alone. Your pain is valid, but so is your strength. You have the power to take back control, to heal, and to rise above. I hope my story inspires you to never settle for less than you deserve, and to find your own path to happiness and peace. If you found this story meaningful, please subscribe, like, and share to help others who need to hear that they can overcome their struggles too. Thank you for listening. Stay strong and keep fighting for your happiness.